Hey everyone, welcome to the Centre Bounce. We're here to discuss our first initial impressions and thoughts about the 2023 Supercoach season now that it's opened up with the early team picker. So let's get started. This is excellent. Excellent. We're finally back together again, talking Supercoach in a formal, official setting. I am looking forward to this year so much, and I'm sure all of our viewers are excited about that as well. What are you most looking forward to, Luke?
It's a new year. Happy 2023. I am looking forward to seeing who will break out and become our next. Who will create a cult for? Who is the next? Who is our next hero? Our next
Indeed.
champion?
And you, Big J?
Um, well, my footy team, North Melbourne's been pretty terrible for the past 3 years. So I'm excited to see what Clarko can actually do and finally showcase the talent that we know that's on the list. Mate, get to cheer for football again. So I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, it's really exciting. There's a lot to look forward to. It's a new year. We've got some new rules, with the new extra sub. So there's definitely, the talk about Tasmania around the corner. So it just feels like, football getting a lot more exciting. Hopefully we can get some more work on the score review as well. But ultimately, we're here to talk about Supercoach because Supercoach is life, as we always say. I don't know who says it, but I'm saying it now. Supercoach is life, and we love it too much. And we're here to talk about all of our initial impressions, our thoughts, some trends that we're seeing, and just some sort of our thoughts on some of the topics, main topics being, like how we're feeling about it, talking about the pricing as well on some things because it does seem to be a lot more expensive these days, and just running off ideas from there. So I guess we can start with Big J. How are you feeling about Supercoach this year in particular?
When Team Picker opened, I was not shocked, but kind of a little bit worried. Having to look at a lot of positions on field and just kind of the pricing and things like that in general. Every year I've always said Supercoach is different, and what happened last year and the things we the rules and whatever we've learned from last year is a bit different now, especially with the DPP changes, coming through at the 3 times during the year, with kind of the extra trades and things like that. But just kind of going over initially, it really seems like players are a little bit more expensive. And outside of a few guys, we really don't have that many kind of clear options or clear kind of, hey, this guy's a bit underpriced, is a premium, that kind of thing. There's some players, we'll mention Tom Mitchell as being very cheap and could be kind of coming back to that, but it really hasn't been as much as what we've had in previous years, which is really going to lead to a lot of, teams being very interesting coming through the preseason.
Yeah, I agree. I'm definitely noticing that there's not the one streamlined exact uniform team that probably has been around in previous years. It's been mostly, you got to lock in these players, and then you're sort of filling in the rest of the team with pods. But it just seems that there are a lot more options this year, and given the price of the players, people are being a lot more liberal with their decision of, am I going to pay up this much for this person, or will I go more mid-price madnessy and move away from the guns and rookies? Do you think that's sort of what's happening, Luke? Are we moving away from the guns and rookies approach and going towards more mid-price madness?
I think a little bit. It goes against the fibre of my being a bit because I've done it so many years, guns and rookies. But I'm struggling. I'm struggling. I'm looking at the teams and I'm going, It's early, so we there's a lot of rookies we don't know about yet if we'll get or not, and they'll pop up. Even as close as team selection, they'll pop up and go, "Oh, it's this random guy's playing. He's playing, so I'll get him in on the bench." But yeah, it's a struggle. You're sort of picking players, premiums, and you're picking a couple mid prices you're keen on, and then you still have half the team to pick, and you're just like, I'm going to have to cut someone here and go more mid price. So, yeah, we'll see how we go with that.
I felt like too this year, I think a lot of people got caught out with the extra trades and the trade boosts coming in. Obviously, that had been different than the year before, but also the DPP changes had tricked a lot of people as well. And it seems like one of the trends I've kind of seen with people making their teams in the preseason is leaving space open for guys to potentially change position. Whereas in the past, hey, we would have gone out and picked the top 6 forwards, for example, because we know who they're going to be. Whereas last year we saw Bont and Luke Parker and even guys like Himmelberg getting extra positions on field, and they affected who were the top guys. I think a lot of teams maybe have locked in 1 or 2 in the forward line and then gone and done that as well. So people are learning kind of from what happened last year.
Yeah, we're certainly starting to see more templates, like a lot of discussion about structure, how many premiums you're going to commit to certain lines, because of course there's only so many you can put in. And then it becomes a question of, am I aiming for like a magic 12, for example, 12 premium players, or do I want to really double down on this guns and rookies approach and try and get like 13 premium somehow? Or you could be like, personally, in the situation I'm in, I'm kind of looking at 11 primos, but having more mid prices, just so that, I don't know, like, what does that mean? Like, how in the long run, what does it mean by having more premiums on the field at the start of the season compared to early on? I guess for me, ultimately, the most important thing is having less rookies on the field. I'm prioritizing. I'm prioritizing points overall for my ranking, especially early days, because you can't be sure which rookies are going to go start flying and start performing, like Dacos, for example, or Nick Martin. Like some rookies that just come out of nowhere and just start really playing really, really well. How many primos are you looking at starting, Luke?
This year, I reckon about 11. Yeah. Normally I try to have 12. Even 13. Well, recent years 12 actually. Some people go for 13, but I tend to go for 12 and then maybe like three mid prices. Lower end mid prices though, not like, I don't like my upper end mid prices. I like my 200 to 270,000 range kind of like premium rookies almost sometimes even. Yeah, I think this year 11 though, because I'm just so worried about filling out the rest. Not on having dependable rookies to field concerns me, and I think no one's really talked about it yet, but the defense could be an issue because in recent years we've gone quite heavy on. I've gone quite heavy on defenders the last 2 years in terms of premiums and just having barely any actual rookies in there. Like five premium last year, I think I went 4 or 3 and 2 300k kind of mid prices the year before, and this year we have those, but and we do have the guy
Liam
from
Jones,
former Essendon player who's now at Brisbane. I forgot
Connor
his name.
McKenna.
Oh man, we have Connor McKenna, so he could hopefully be good. But I am a bit concerned because this year it'll be harder to. The appeal to me of just going heavy in defence in previous years was I felt like I could get players pretty close to the best for like 540 tops, and I was pretty happy with that. I was like, let's just get Jaden Short in. Let's just get Kayla Danielin, what a fail that was.
Oh.
Tom Stewart, let's get Tom Stewart in. Let's get, Tom, he was a bit more expensive, but I was okay with it. But this year, I feel like if we need to go really heavy in defense because of lack of rookies, it's going to be quite difficult because they're all the best ones from last year, all over 600,000. So there's no money. You can't go 5 deep like I did last year again, or 4 deep. You can't do that very easily. So that's my concern. Definitely. So sorry if I went on topic of it. That's my big concern, structure-wise.
I think for me, I'm running 12 premiums at the moment. One thing I found I kind of touched on at the start was there doesn't seem to be, I think a little bit we've been hurt by guys maybe not dropping in price due to average changes, that kind of thing, and missed games as much as what we thought we were going to be. It's like your Ben Cunningtons, or I know people were saying Jack Steele might be sub, 600K guys that you could really lock in and play. And we kind of haven't been given that as much. So I'm finding myself maybe picking like one Uber Primo in each line and then filling it out with some cheaper guys. Last year, kind of touching on that as well, I found out that picking, your stepping stone players like Luke kind of touched on, your cheaper guys that are a bit undervalued. Maybe they got injured the year before or they're up and coming, that kind of thing, who should be able to make you that cheeky 150K fairly easy. And with trade boosts coming out now, kind of people getting used to being able to use them, it's actually made it a lot easier to pick up your primos as well. You think about it, you've kind of got, if you can fill your team with these players, like we're talking about changing from guns and rookies to mid prices, if you can fill your team with them, 5 trade boosts is almost 5 quick primos. So it works out all right.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. And so, it becomes a question of
how many are you running?
I'm running 11. I'm running 11 primos. I've got 4 in the back line. Because like Luke said, with his concerns, I also share those concerns as well. I think when it comes to other lines, there are a lot more options. But when it comes to the back line and the clear top scorers that you want to have in your back line, if you don't, you got to pay up for them. And the way that defenders are playing these days and the way they've been scoring, they're quite consistent and they're not dropping in price that much. You had Sicily grow up in price a lot. You had Stewart, despite all of those games that he missed, he was still relatively stable still in terms of his price. He didn't lose price either. You had players like Dacos really rise up in price as well. Sinclair rose up in price. You didn't, Doherty also, you didn't really have many defenders heavily slide, I don't think, compared to the midfielders. So I just thought that I'm the way I'm thinking with my setup is I'd rather just get that stability in that back line, more shored up, and I have time with all of these mid prices on my team to trade up just to primo midfielders that slide in price. And I just think that there are so many good midfielders these days that you don't need to nail 100% the top 6, 8, the top 800%, because there are so many that are just, give or take. As you say, the league is getting better all the time, and I just think that you don't need to have the exact combination in the midfield to get it right. Whereas I think the back line, the top scorers are more limited.
Yeah, and they seem a bit more locked into their position as well, right? Like you can kind of guess off the top who are probably going to be the top 8 defenders, which allows you to pick, 3, 4, 5 deep fairly easy. Whereas, I know from my example, I wasn't going to start Zach Merritt. I didn't think Zach Merritt was going to be a top 8 defender, top 8 midfielder. But after the price drop, I brought him in and he was pumping out huge numbers. So that's kind of one of those things where maybe, like you're saying, set up in the defense with the locked-in players and then fill out everywhere else. Is that fair to say, Luke?
Yeah, it's just harder though because of the price. But I'm very hesitant to pay to get anyone that's a say one of the 550, like someone like Dale or something, I'm hesitant to get
Yeah.
those types because because there are guys at 600 that I'm pretty confident will be up there again. So it's hard because you want to save a bit of money somehow, but you don't really, you're hesitant to because you know who's up there a bit, at least the top 5. You can kind of pick 5 of the top 8, I think, right off the bat. And for the rest, I don't know, but I think I definitely think the top 5 or 6. I expect them. I would expect all of them to be right up there again. It's a budget thing again. You want to pick. For me, I would just do it. I just bite the bullet and get the guys I think will be at the top. But a lot of people it'll be very uncomfortable paying up 610K for a defender that's starting. Let alone they're not even the only one. It's their third defender over 600 or something, or their second over 600. It's I think it's going to be a bit tricky. I think it's a bit of a dilemma.
Yeah, but I guess it depends though, like because it's eating up a lot of your salary in one line. But when you've got this year, for example, so many cheap, expensive rookie or mid-price options in the forward line, like you've got a few people there. You've got your Fifes, you've got your Taron Thomases, you've got your Oscar Allens, your Ben Kings, so you've got McLean, you've got players in that forward line. You can fill it up with a bunch of mid prices essentially, so that you don't really need to stock up. You might only need like 1 or 2 primos in the forward line. Could allow you to stack up that back line more. But then again, there's also the ruck dilemma as well this year, which is I think unlike other years as well. Like this, like what is going on with the rucks? Like there's just so many options. And these player movements over the offseason, you know what I mean? Like, you've got Meek joining the Hawks. So, Sean Darcy could go up. But they had Luke Jackson. Gone. Wait, but he's lost Jackson. But he's gained Grundy this time. Like, there's a bit of movement with the ruck line. Can you see the right way to navigate this, Big J?
Well, I was going to ask, how do you guys, with all the big player movements, Dunkley to Brisbane, a lot of people leaving Western Bulldogs, the Hawthorn situation, what's happening at Collingwood, those kind of teams, the ones that have brought a lot of players in who, are somewhat Supercoach relevant. How have you guys kind of navigated that with picking your starting teams and looking at what you're going to be looking at through the preseason? I know with myself, like, I've been hesitant to pick up someone like the Bont or McRae, for example. I've been shying away from a few of the Hawthorn, cheaper, younger players as stepping stones because you just don't know kind of what the team dynamic is going to look like, for example. Even a Taron Thomas, I've been pretty hot on him for a while, but there's some really big question marks with kind of how is a new coach coming in going to really affect like these players who traditionally have had good scoring. Your guys' kind of thoughts on those? Maybe you go first, Luke.
Yeah. So what immediately came to mind for me was Dunkley going to Brisbane and the effect on the Dogs midfield that could have. So unlike you, or maybe you'll change your mind, but unlike you, I am super keen on getting Bontempelli in my starting team. And sitting back in round 1 and just watching him bang him in from 50 meters and enjoying his 30 points scaling every match. So that's I personally think that they have so many midfielders at the Dogs that Dunkley leaving, whilst bad for the Dogs as a team, Supercoach wise, could be really good for players like Bontempelli, especially if he's fitter this season. Last season there was a lot of injury kind of speculation about him playing injured, and he didn't look like he did look like he was playing injured at many times. So Bontempelli is the first one that came to mind for me, and then the other thing that came to mind was just all the ruckmen moving around and how that changes the dynamic of all the ruckmen at their clubs. I don't like having players ruckmen share the role for Supercoach. I don't like it. There's a pretty common pattern of ruckmen scoring better when they have to do more themselves, like Rowan Marshall and Paddy Ryder or Max Gawn in the past. It's sad. We had it so easy. We had it so easy in the ruck. We just had. There was a time when it was Max Gawn and Brodie Grundy like gods in the team, like almost like auto pick gods. So dependable. Just Gawn VC, Grundy C, vice versa. You could do that every week and get a good captain score. They worked out numbers, and it was just so dependable for so long. But now it's like we're in that wilderness. The ruck, we're searching for a ruckman.
I have one. We have one, Luke. He plays for Essendon, bro. We have one. He's got a beautiful mullet, mate. His name is One Big Sammy Draper. I am all over this man like a rash. All over him. He's the next one. Don't you worry. I have him in my Supercoach team. He will not let you down. If you trust in the Drapes, he will carry you. In addition to that, though, and yes, you were 100% right. I am so on Bontempelli as well, just like you. But the next thing that I thought of was, oh boy, GWS. Their midfield is a bit lacking now. Time for Tom Green to step up. Like I felt. I just thought that the stars have aligned for this guy. We've seen glimpses of it last year. And I think he's just going to take that next step this year. Like you say, it's so exciting having a cult figure or a breakout, someone to take that next level for you to really ride that wave with them as they go through. It just makes the game so much more enjoyable when you're rooting for players and they do so well. It's a joy that we have here playing this game. And I know you were well and truly onto Bont a couple of years ago and all those super ridiculous scaling. I'm thinking of Heaney now. I'm thinking of adding Heaney to the team now with all that bloody scaling talk.
For those of you who haven't been in the Fantasy Take TV Discord, there's also what I meant by champion was there's a it's quite popular for people to kind of identify with a player with their name and stuff like that, and really get behind them. It is something I have done it before with Bontempelli. It's a fun thing to do. Where you really you're really championing. Last season I was championing Rory Laird from the early days, saying that he is the truth and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's what I meant by champion. It's awesome to have those players that you can just you just root for so much for your Supercoach team. And people, when they think of that player, even they might think of you. Yeah. I was just going to mention Hawthorn as well. You mentioned GWS midfield. I think Hawthorn losing O'Meara and Tom Mitchell, there could be there's a lot of potential there for rookies or mid prices that could really. There's a lot of midfield time up for grabs. So that is, I don't know if many people talked about Hawthorn much, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're really, really getting keen on those guys come later part of preseason. Who knows?
Yeah, no, definitely. As Joe was kind of touching on with Tom Green coming into fruition, one of the things that you've found as well is that teams that are shuffling players around it allows a lot more rookies to kind of come into there, and maybe players who have been VFL stars actually come in and take the positions as well. So something to look out for, I guess, during the preseason, who's getting talked about a lot, that kind of thing.
Jai Newcomb last season.
Jai Newcomb, yeah.
Yeah, good example, I think.
I think he's a bit too expensive, though, for me.
Yeah, I mean more last season, actually, sorry. Like he was very cheap earlier last season, and if you picked him last season, he would have been a great pick. Will Ashcroft, maybe.
One of the things I wanted to kind of touch on that I found this year was, or at least kind of looking at Supercoach to start with, and my thoughts on the draft kind of affecting Supercoach was teams, I think, just in the AFL in general. Sometimes you'll find on the ladder, maybe there's like 4 or 5 teams that are really good, and then the rest of them are kind of rebuilding or in that kind of struggling, growing stage. Whereas it seems now, maybe the first 12 or so teams are really strong. And there's a couple of rebuilding, let's say like a North Melbourne, probably a West Coast or Hawthorn, that kind of thing. But what that's really leading to is almost the lack of rookies on field, because kids aren't getting picked up in the draft anymore. We've heard, record low numbers probably again, or fairly close to it in the draft. Not as many development kids getting played, but also a lot of kind of mature age rookies getting picked up as well through their SSP, guys who can automatically play, who are fighting for a position. Maybe a trend that we really haven't seen last year or in previous years, leading to a lot of guys really being available for Supercoach who are cheap, versus maybe like a normal rookie. I know Tim Kelly was a big pickup a couple of years ago, and no one had really picked up a really good mature age rookie straight away. Then we had your Marlon Pickers. I think in my team in Supercoach at the moment, I've got 4 or 5 mature age rookies who were picked up this year who are ready to play. What do you guys kind of feel about this? Do you feel like maybe there's not going to be as many rookies as previous years? I know last year maybe we had 8 or 9 in total who were like good scoring players.
Yeah, the way I'm looking at the rookies is I'm really just seeing them as warm bodies that hopefully can just keep playing every week and start, picking away and make money. Especially because there's so many, when you're a team that's on the rise, it's unlikely that you give your team, your young players, a lot of opportunity to shine. You're just going to play your best 22, best 23. I guess in this case now, or it's becoming more common for rookies to debut as the sub. We saw that a few times last year where people were talking like, "Oh, that's not fair. That shouldn't count as a debut, coming off the bench as a sub like that." It just seems to me exactly like the league's getting more professional, and I feel like back in the day it would have been like, "Yeah, go for it, go play, put some time into the kids." Whereas now, I think organizations are becoming a lot more professional and making these younger players earn it over a longer period of time, and understand like you've got a whole career ahead of you. There's no need for you to rush in this instance and play you right away, especially when you have so many teams trying to fight for a top 8 spot, and we've discussed on this channel that there's around 12 teams fighting for a spot in the top 8. And that's why I guess you have your special teams like Hawthorn, that are just so full of young players that you end up just stacking your team, your bench with those types of players. There are those who went guns and rookies last year that had too many of them. Really felt the sting. Really felt the sting though. So I guess that's part of the reason why so many people, I think, are moving to mid-price madness this year, just so that they'll get the key rookies that they identify in their research during the off season, but without the pain of having to cop a Josh Ward score on the field. You know what I mean? Like as you did, Big J.
Yeah, or a Rochelle scoring like an 18, or a McDonald with like a 30. And yeah, it's painful. Missing out on those crucial rookies is getting more and more painful because there's not 10 available players who are scoring well. It's like 6 or 7 now. What do you reckon, Luke?
Long gone are the for anyone who, for those who don't know, I've been playing Supercoach quite a long time. I remember when GWS and Gold Coast joined the competition, and there was a gazillion rookies from those two clubs because they were all kids. So long gone are those days now because you're searching far and wide hope jumping onto any little glimmer of hope of this guy could average 60 and not score a 20 for you on your field. And then also there's the 5 substitute thing, which just stresses me out now because I think we're going to be seeing some real carnage with the 5 substitute, the 5 players in the substitute rule. You're going to see, what's his name? That Rioli scored like a 9 or something like that. You're going to see players like Rioli's get subbed off.
My boy. Love
Maurice, yeah, you're going to see players like your Maurice Rioli's gets, not Maurice, but players like that, those sort of young kind of energizer battery pressure forwards that run around. They're going to get subbed off and they're going to score a 14 for you or something, and you're going to be pulling your hair out, thinking, "Oh my goodness, why did I start this rookie over this one? I should have known he was more likely to get subbed off or something like that." So yeah, I'm just reflecting right now on the potential of that substitution. Definitely worth considering with rookies that you want to field. You want to be more careful now than ever that you don't think they'll get subbed off potentially like 2/3 into the match.
Yeah, I know for me it's really pushed me to try and pick up like Oscar Baker, your Wagner, those guys who are more mature age in their 20s. They're rookie priced in Supercoach, but they're not 18-year-old kids straight out the draft who, if they play a bad half or a bad quarter and they gas out, well, coach says, see you later. Last year that wouldn't have happened. They would just have to struggle for the rest of the game. Maybe give you an extra 15, 20 points. Whereas now those rookies are like, yep, you're a midfielder. Our 5th person is a midfielder. Swap you out, done. So, Joe, do you reckon teams are more going to be playing a bit more, as we mentioned, Rioli, like a fast-paced person in the last quarter as the 5th sub? Do you reckon they'll be a bit strategic like that, or kind of more overall players? What do you reckon?
I think it depends on the team, because, I mean, you got to look at it. When you're going to activate your sub, it's mainly going to be probably for one of, I think, either 2 or 3 reasons. I'd assume that reason 1 would be a circuit breaker. You are behind on the scoreboard. You want to change the look of the game, and you want to sort of break some lines perhaps, or maybe throw in a curveball to sort of change momentum of the game. Or you've got an injury. Someone has to come out. And so it's just a no-brainer. You activate that sub. Or you've got a player that you want to keep under wraps. The game is over, so you're not going to risk them anymore. You might just sub them out. It's okay. We'll give someone else an opportunity. So, considering those things, I think the type of sub that different teams will have will I think be matchup dependent. I can't imagine Essendon having a really fast sub person, for example, just a quick person off the bench. We have a few quick people already. I think it would have to be something different, like a player that can plug in a number of different roles. I know we had like Cutler, for example, as a sub number of times because he can play on a wing, or he can play in the mids, or he can play off half back. I think the most common usage will either be someone fast in case the team is losing, or a bigger body utility that can fill in the gap somewhere. It will probably be one of those two, and I think it will be matchup dependent for each team.
And the painful thing for Supercoach as well is that, if the player gets subbed off, their scoring's done. And if your crappy rookie gets subbed on, you're only getting a 10, even though they played like 5 minutes of game time. So, could really tank a guy's cash gen pretty quick.
Yeah. I guess that's also another reason why you're being pushed towards mid-price madness this year, right?
Yeah, definitely.
It just reduces your exposure to a lot of this carnage that is completely out of our control. So definitely better. And in the event that one of these mid prices gets injured or doesn't work, you can at least downgrade them to a rookie that appears to be doing really well and appears to have good job security. Um, so there is flexibility, and if it works out, it's also a lot easier to get up to a primo. So it just seems like the game is really trying to push us towards mid-price madness. And after this discussion, I don't think it appears to be very mad. I think it appears to be very sensible and almost like you're diversifying your portfolio, I think.
Yeah. And maybe teams will use it a different way, but until you've actually seen it, we kind of have to prepare the way we're going.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, mid-price madness, I think, is going to be very commonplace. It just, I think, comes down to a question of how hard you go into it, whether or not you go 11 primos or if you go 12 primos. Regardless of the way you go, I think it's important that you pick the right ones that will either give you more games and good job security, I suppose. And that's why I'm very iffy about like Oscar Allen and Ben King and even Fife. It's like long-term injuries, coming back. I don't know. It's a bit risky. It's a bit risky. And the whole point of going mid-price is to try and alleviate the risk that comes with picking a rookie. So I think everyone's going to do their own cost benefit analysis, I suppose, for each individual player overall. Um, it's a really interesting one, and I think we'll probably discuss more about it in more detail in future videos when we're talking about the specific lines. But I guess in general now with this discussion, it's just things to keep in mind to sort of help guide your philosophy when it comes to how you view your team. I think it's a good thing to keep in the back of your mind.
No, definitely.
I was just going to say that I think it's definitely the 35 trades and the trade boost has definitely pushed us more towards mid-price. And I think last year was that big year of learning that, obviously, because it was the first year of that. Historically, with 30 trades, you would find yourself you'd find that teams that went more mid-price, if they worked, then brilliant, they're ahead. But if they didn't work, you're using up trades to catch up to the people who didn't go all mid-price mad.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the season, you got no trades left, and you're struggling to complete your team. And the people that went more guns and rookies actually were doing better at the end of the season in terms of number of trades because they didn't have to use all these corrective trades on failed mid-prices. Nowadays, there's also the ones that did fail. You'd be ruining. You'd be potentially slowing down your momentum, upgrading the team. You're correcting all these fires of failed mid prices. But now with the trade bursts, it's less. You're not going to get behind as much from a mid pricer failing. It used to be potentially catastrophic if a couple mid prices all didn't work. You'd end up in a situation where you were just correcting fires every week, and people were just getting far ahead of you. But now it's flips. Now if you don't go for the mid prices, these people with the succeeding mid prices are just getting further and further away from you, and you're getting in, but they already had them in, and they're getting other people in, and then you might be able to get in the really big mid prices like the Will Brodys and the in the year before Jack Siebel and Camilio last year. You might be able to get those guys in time, but the guys that went more mid-price at the start and already had Will Brody and already had some of the less picked mid-prices, they're getting in the really less picked mid-prices like the Kernos, and they're still ahead of you because of that. And they have all these extra trades, and they're outscoring you the whole time. And then you wonder at the end of the season how you're 1,000 points behind them and how they're in the top 10 ranked AFL Supercoach. And it's because they already had them. They already had them. And because they already had them, they're not only are they benefiting from that, but they're potentially bring in Charlie Curnow last year. Someone like Charlie Curnow. I don't know if anyone brought him in actually at the top, but it's just an example of someone that you have to be in a really privileged situation where you can bring in a pod mid-pricer that is doing well, because you already have all the Will Brodys and Canelio type ones that everyone has, hopefully. It's the whole risk. A big part of Supercoach is the whole risk versus reward. If it succeeds or it doesn't succeed, guns versus rookies is more of the approach is more protecting yourself against things, whereas mid prices more upside of if it works though, I'll be absolutely flying. And I think the more trades and the more trade risks favors the latter, because you're a lot more protected now from things failing, and you can catch up a bit easier, and you're not finding yourself with two trades left at the end of the season, and not quite as good a team as someone else that went guns and rookies. I got a lot of anecdotes I can give, but that's all I'll say for now.
Yeah, I guess it comes down to that thing where the aim of Supercoach is to have a full premium scoring team, and then it's always better if you get that quicker than everyone else. So,
exactly.
Yeah,
and the trade boosts, absolute game changer. It's just really brought a lot of life, I think, and excitement to the game, and it's opened up a lot of playmaking ability in the way you try and build your team moving forward. And I think with all of these extra improvements to the game in general and the overall skill level, I'm really excited to see really diversified teams. Players are really expensive, so people are being a lot more cautious and wary about who to pick. At this early stage, we are seeing differences in teams, but I don't know if, given how expensive things are, people might be too afraid to go against the grain, and everyone might end up just flocking together and meeting in the middle and having a lot of similarities. So I guess only time will tell. But at the end of the day, everyone should really do their own research to try and pick the players that they think are going to be really good. So please stay tuned to this channel as we go into more depth with all of the lines and discussing certain players and different strategies to setting up your team. This was just an overall thoughts discussion video. More specifics will be coming soon, so please subscribe and stick around to see what's to come.
Okay, so thanks for watching. Bye.
See you guys.
See ya.
See ya.